Oh.
It's Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern, so you know what that means. It's time for another episode of #EventIcons, presented by Endless Events, the show where you get to ask the icons of the events industry anything. Use the question panel on the webinar to submit your questions, or you can hop on Twitter. Submit your questions with #EventIcons. We'll be answering your questions live during the entire show. Before we get started, the more people we have watching, the better conversation we can have. So please help share #EventIcons on Twitter and Facebook. Just tell your friends to watch at www.event-icons.com. Now, without any further delay, this is #EventIcons.
Oh, yeah. Hey, everybody. It's Will Curran with Endless Events, and it is time for more #EventIcons. Woo! I'm really excited. Today, it's cold enough in Phoenix, so I'm wearing an Endless hoodie, which is very rare. So shout outs to everyone who has one of these out there. You know who you are. All right. So enough being said, I want to jump really quickly into this episode. You've got some familiar faces on the screen, but we also have a newcomer who we'll introduce in just a second. But we're talking about a really awesome topic that I know a lot of the hosts were jumping and clamoring to host, but I got lucky enough to be able to host this episode. We're talking about the history of the last 8 years of event tech. Yes, it's so exciting. Actually, this came from one of our guest co-hosts, Liz King, who is joining me in the bottom left. Liz, you all know, if you haven't watched the show before, you can go check out episode 3, episode 24, and episode 52. She's on all of those, and she is absolutely amazing. We're so excited to have her. And we were talking about this topic about, celebrating event tech and all that has happened. And I'm just so excited to have you back on the panelist, on the guest side again this time.
Woohoo! It's better on this side. Definitely better on this side.
Definitely better on this side. You don't have to worry about the intro. Yeah,
exactly.
Also joining us today, also very familiar with event tech and also very familiar with event icons from episode 11, episode 83, and episode 88, and now episode 102. We're joined by David Epstein from Bizzabo. God, you guys are going to kill me. I've never in my entire life. Absolutely amazing event tech software. These guys are leaders. I love these guys. So happy to have you back, David.
Thanks, Will.
I'm so excited to have you here.
Awesome. This is probably going to be my favorite episode. What a great topic. Super exciting.
Man, wait, so even better than perfect event website? That was like my favorite topic. Okay,
well, everyone listening needs to go back and watch that one and then watch this one, and then you can compare.
There you go. Okay. Yeah. Vote in the comments. Let us know which episode is better for sure. But we are joined by someone new, someone non-familiar face, but I am so excited. We got a chance to talk a little bit before the show. And he's a music guy saying that he has nerves of steel, no stage fright. Joined by Nerves of Steel, Mike Judeh from Convene. Mike, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to nerd out, I guess.
I love it. And if you don't know what Convene is, we actually had Chris Kelly on the show, episode 35. It's so awesome. We have so many episodes now. I can recall all these ones. But you can hear the story a little bit about what Convene is all about and how it's different than most event venues. I'm sure we're going to talk a lot about the technology behind Convene as well during the show. But Mike, we're super duper excited to have you here. So really quick, before we dive into the topic itself, I want to do a really quick updates from everyone and then also give Mike a chance to introduce yourself as well. So let's go with this. Let's go, Mike. You're new part of the show. We got to let everyone know you're an event icon now. Tell us what got you into this crazy world of events.
Yes, I think I had a roundabout path. Early on, I was a huge fan of music, and I decided when I was a teenager that I was going to be a ride or die rock star. I was going to be a musician, and there was no way you were going to beat that out of me. And I followed that through high school, followed that into music school. And when I was in music school, as a music major, you had to minor in something as well. So I took technology. 2 years into college, I realized there's probably not a lot of money as a professional musician, and the success rate isn't super high. So I got really into the tech, and I think it it just worked for who I am and my personality. And so once I got out of school, I was really in the pro audio world. So I spent a lot of times cutting my teeth in recording studios, fell into live sound, and part of the live sound, I became a production manager for an international touring act. So I took on beyond the audio, we were taking in video, lighting, IMAG. So incorporating all the things that you'll see in a lot of large conferences and events that most of our attendees will attend. Was on the road, got really lucky to spend 2 years kind of traveling the world with a bunch of bands. Got back, that lifestyle really seems cool, is really not that glorious. We can talk offline about some of the stories. So when I got back, I got lucky again. I've been really great at right place, right time. Was working with SiriusXM as a contractor, handling a lot of their live event broadcasts for their radio. And kind of as that was fading out, this opportunity to convene just faded in. And it was a really great opportunity. It's an up-and-coming company. The culture here, the people, the team really attracted me. But the ability to really build something from the ground up as a world-class technology team was like, yeah, I'm in. Let's do it. So I was able to take kind of this school of the hard knocks technology education and apply it to meetings and events for Fortune 500 companies and for startups. And it's been a fun ride ever since.
Awesome. I love it. I was excited for people to share how you turned from the live touring aspect, which gets exhausting, and how did you bring it into the venue space. So since probably not everyone's going to get a chance to watch episode 35, can you give him one sentence what Convene is all about and how it relates to technology?
Yeah, well, I mean, the tagline for Convene is the easiest place to host a meeting. So space, culinary, technology, it's all under one roof, minimal points of contact, easy package-based selections that have access to food, technology, constant snacks. And we like to say that we 86 the nickel and dime. We just try to make it a friendly user experience and make it easy to plan a meeting and not have to worry about getting charged for maybe every can of Pepsi or Coke that one of your attendees pulls off the shelf, or having access to fast Wi-Fi. That's just stuff that should be there. It's running water, it's electricity. It's just a basic necessity at this point, right? Beyond that, we're extending into a couple of new ventures, which include co-working space, as well as flexible office space for enterprise partners and solutions.
Cool. That's awesome. Amazing. I love it. All right. Well, next we got to go. So you guys have both been on the show before, so I'll let David go first and give us just a quick update as far as what have you been up to, David? What is the whole team up to? And also a little bit about, if you want to give everyone a little heads up, if they don't know what your guys' software does, what it does, and why you think you're here today.
Awesome. Well, love to. Thanks again, Will, for having me back for my 4th episode. Too many more to come. So some exciting stuff happening at Bizzabo. I'm actually talking to you all from a new office. We just moved to a bigger space on Park and 26th. So if anyone's in the area, ping me, and I'd love to show you around. We raised $15 million Series B. And we're investing all of that money straight into our product, growing our product teams. So almost every single week I get an email, the whole company gets an email about the new features we're releasing. And there's some really exciting stuff coming down the pipe, like cross-event analytics, for example. So you can actually see across all of your events in a responsive, really nice dashboard how they're faring. You can benchmark yourself, and that's just the beginning when it comes to analytics and where we're going with that. So a lot of exciting stuff there. And in general, we're growing pretty quickly. 2018 and 2019 are real years of growth for us. So there are a lot of cool customers joining us and fun challenges that we're working on related to how do we scale this product and introduce it to the people who should know about it. So that's cool. Personally, the team that I'm on, the demand gen team's growing too. So some exciting stuff there. I think I'm here today to shed some light on the kind of the event management software aspect of things. And, we've come a long way. I did some research about, where the industry was 10 years ago and a little before, and we've come a long way. So I look forward to getting into it.
Awesome. Awesome. I'm super excited to get into it too. And I don't want to delay the inevitable for sure too, because I know you guys got some really, really cool stuff, and I appreciate the research beforehand. And for those that are maybe similar to me, like I wasn't around 8 years ago, really in depth in the industry. So I'm really excited to hear about how it shifted as I've entered it more recently than 8 years ago. So, well, now, we're talking about event tech. So we had to bring the queen, the master of all event tech. And actually, this was Liz's idea. I don't want to take credit for this at all. Liz came up with this idea and said, like, hey, here's this topic idea. What do you think we should do it? And I said, I love it. I think we absolutely need to do this. And I think no one better in the world to have than Liz King in the house. So, Liz, give a little update. Why did we decide to do this episode? What's going on? Can you tell everyone a little bit give everyone a little update as far as what you've been up to?
Sure. Well, as everyone knows, our industry is changing so rapidly. And we actually launched an event called Planner Tech, which eventually evolved into Techsy Talk Live. And we've been doing that now for 8 years. This is upcoming on April 20th as our 10th event in 8 years. And, Ed and I from my team, we're sitting there talking about the past 8 years, and we're reliving. We started looking back at all the pictures from the first event. It's like one of those reminiscing moments, and we're like, man, the industry has really changed in 8 years. And I just thought it would be fun to look at some of the companies who have grown and changed so much. I mean, the Bizzabo platform, for example, is nothing like it was when I first saw it back in 2007 or 2010, 2011, something like that. Same with Convene. I think obviously the tech has always been an important piece of that, but people's need for technology, their demand for tech has changed so much. So I just thought, it's always useful to look at where we've come from to get a better sense of where we're going. And I just thought it would be a really fun conversation and also a really good way for people who were not involved in this 8 to 10 years ago to get a primer on where we're at and, where we're going.
Absolutely. I think in a day and age where we're, like you said, things are changing so fast and we're getting so many new technologies that sometimes we take technology for granted, right? We think to ourselves, like I live in an apartment where I walk in and the lights turn on automatically. And if you just came in and that was the standard for living and you're used to that, and all of a sudden one light bulb didn't work, you might be thinking to yourself, like, this technology sucks. It doesn't work right. But to me, who didn't have that before, thinks, yeah, it doesn't work that one time, but every other time it works perfectly. It's amazing. I think it grows some appreciation as far as where we've come from. So I'm definitely excited for this. So I want to jump right on in, and I want you guys to kind of let's turn the time machine backwards 8 years. And I'll start with you, Liz, so you can talk a little about what Techsy Talk Live looked like, and then Mike and David jump in and talk a little about how you guys have seen it change as well. But what did this look like 8 years ago? What sort of tools were popping? What was the future trends, predictions? What was people thinking this was going to all go 8 years ago? So Liz, why don't you kick it off for us?
Yeah, sure. So we started Planner Tech, and the impetus was actually Internet Week was coming up, and that was really popular back in the day. There was Internet Week and then Social Media Week, and it was coming up in June, and we're like, okay, we should do something. And literally everyone was doing panels on something. We're like, well, what if we change it up and we do a showcase where we have 10 companies come up and they pitch their product for 4 minutes just so planners can learn about what kind of products are out there. Because I was learning about all these cool things, and then I would go talk to all these planners and they were like, I'd have never heard of any of that. I don't know what you're talking about. So we did that first event. And then I remember, it was a great event. It was I think we had 150 planners there, and we had 10 companies. And then it finished and everyone's like, when are we doing it again? And I remember having this conversation with Ed. I'm like, so what if there's no more event tech companies? What would we do? Because we only knew of the 10 that we invited to this event. And then 6 months later, we're like, I guess, we'll see what's out there. And there were 10 new companies. We're like, wait a minute, what just happened? Then by the third event, we realized that the same companies had changed dramatically in the year. So they were like new companies. So it's just, I think, so interesting. Back then, there was so much curiosity. If I'm looking at the technology that we had back then, it was a lot about hashtag tracking, social media photo boost. It was really around Twitter walls, it was that kind of stuff. And I feel like we've gotten so much more advanced and thinking about engagement and thinking about really cool analytics and measurement. Back then, I mean, at least my opinion was, it was a lot of fun. And it was like a lot of social stuff that we were integrating, and just learning that could actually impact our events.
Wow. I mean, it's funny to think that tracking hashtags was the big analytic data that was for 8 years ago. Now it's like, we want to know exactly which direction you're turning, where your eyes are pointed, and what is currently in your mouth.
Yeah.
You know, like, it's crazy how much it's all changed. Do you have any, I'm curious to know, do you have any examples of companies that were featured back then, and some, or any of them still around today, and any cool like anecdotal stories like, man, this one company did this and now they do this? It's crazy, right? Do you have any?
So some of the people who were at our very first event were Event Farm, which still exists today, except they were a very like private ticketing system. It was all about being able to send an invitation to one person and make sure they were the only person who registered. And now they're doing really cool things with RFID and NFC. And they've definitely changed as a company completely. And I think at our second event, we did it in Washington, D.C. And I think Social Tables, that was their first event. And I think it was just done. I don't think anybody else in the company. Now they're voted like best places to work in D.C. They have a massive company. Their platform does amazing things. And then, you know, another interesting thing is looking back, there's so many companies that went out of business. There's like a lot of them that don't even exist anymore.
And it's because, you know, like they might have been solving a need that doesn't exist anymore, right? Like, and then they didn't quite evolve, unfortunately, right? But I mean,
yeah.
Talking about someone who evolved, though, Mike, you went from being a tech guy, like an AV guy like me, to going on site and figuring out how can we make meetings more easy. Can you talk a little bit about where you've seen kind of event technology shift in the last 8 years?
Yeah, I think to touch on what Liz was saying in engagement, it's becoming more of an interactive experience. I think those are the things that are increasing retention rate and increasing like attendee engagement. So like AR and VR experiences, that wasn't really real 8 years ago. Live polling and Q&A, like things like Slido, tools like that. I think a really big one is the ability to stream so easily. I mean, you're in your apartment right now setting up this really awesome stream on multiple sites with minimal cost and minimal effort, and a little bit of training, of course, but anybody can learn that. So these things that seem really far out of reach, like setting up video conferences and streaming 8 years ago, insanely costly, insanely complicated, and now anybody can do it with a Zoom license or a GoToMeeting or WebEx.
Absolutely. To go a little anecdotal for a second, I'm sorry. Like I feel like there's a little near dear to me too, because I've been like really in technology and websites since I was a kid. And I remember when I was graduating, don't kill me, people. When I was graduating middle school and going into freshman year of high school in 2004, I'm sorry, everyone. I remember I had in my internet radio station, and I thought to myself, man, it'd be so cool if I could listen to my internet radio station while I'm out and about, like at this event that we were volunteering for. And I was like, man, I could bring my PDA. I should get this Wi-Fi chip I can put on, and I can plug my headphones in and listen to it. And then I remember getting the first iPhone and listening to internet radio while driving down the freeway and being like, I can listen to streaming music out of the air into my phone. And that was mind-blowing. And now look at this, high definition. We're on Facebook Live, Zoom, and also recording simultaneously from, yes, my apartment. And it's crazy. Yeah. Wild.
And you have a great sounding $80 microphone that is plugged and play,
Yeah. Thank you. David, what about you? Where have you seen things change? And how have you guys evolved over the last 8 years?
Yeah, it's a great question. So first of all, when I mentioned I did some research, so 8 years ago, Twitter had 50 million users, and Facebook had about 500 million users. Today, Twitter has 330 million, and Facebook tripled the number of users. By the way, they bought Instagram, and they launched Messenger, and they bought WhatsApp. So to Liz's point, talking about where things have come, social media was kind of, it had obviously enough users to be taken seriously, but I think it was still a bit of a novelty in the events world, like, oh, social, let's make everything social, and that will solve the engagement problem. That's the antidote, is just put it on Twitter and put a hashtag behind it, and suddenly that's a cutting edge event. And I think over the years, the iPhone was launched 3 years before that. So like we've come a long way, and this new way of working, the fact that you need mobile optimization, you have social, you have drag and drop, what you see, what you get builders, all of these things have really kind of been around long enough that people have become much more sophisticated. Even like the kind of baseline expertise is much higher than it was 8 years ago. In terms of Bizzabo, in 2010, we weren't a company. And then we were founded in 2011 as a standalone event app, just a networking app. We had one of the first official LinkedIn integrations, and we had this algorithm that would match people, help them get more value from the event, an agenda, mostly networking focused things, and live event, like ad event technology. We still kept a lot of that stuff, but then we built what we call the Events Cloud, which is essentially, an all-in-one tool from the start of the event, moment you build your event website, to, like I said, post-event analytics and machine learning and all this cool stuff. So we pivoted in somewhere in that 8-year time frame. And when we pivoted, I'd say it's a reflection of also where the market went as well. So remember talking about social, that was the thing, right? Bringing social into the live event experience. And what we found when we launched and had been around for a couple of years was, yeah, that's important, but now organizers are getting more sophisticated. They care more about other elements of their event, and that's when we pivoted to. So in a way, Bizzabo kind of reflects that. And it's not just us as well. I think, like I said, it's a whole mindset on behalf of the organizer to think a little more broadly. So yeah, a lot's changed in only 8 years.
Awesome. Wow. I think you bring up a really good point, which I have a follow-up question for. But before I do that, I want to give a shout out to, we have a lot of people in the chat and a lot of people asking, saying hi and hey. So a big shout out to everyone watching right now. Patty, Sid also says hello. Anthony, who's currently watching this during his lunch break, must be on the West Coast. And then also all the way super late, Lisa is currently watching in Ireland. It must be some late night programming for her as well. So hopefully as much entertaining as the Grant Cardone show. All right. So my question to follow up with you, Dave, is you talked a little about the evolution of planners with it too. Do you think with the evolution of technology, the expectations of what you need to know how to do have also evolved? So for example, you talked about it 10 years ago. If you told someone, I need you to build a website, people would say, I don't know how to do that. I can't do that. I'm sorry. And that would be an acceptable answer. Where now it feels like if you say, I can't do that, I can't build a graphic, do you think that's not okay? What are your kind of thoughts as far as that evolution?
Yeah, I think, the thing is the cutting edge events really set the bar, and then everyone else kind of realizes, whoa, that's cool. That's where we need to be going. So if I think about it, I don't know, like Dublin Web Summit or something like that, like some of these cutting edge events, or maybe even TED, right? Like what an amazing kind of spectacle online and offline at the same time. Amazing user interface for the online user. Choose your event in your niche or Dreamforce. So I think you have these trendsetters, and then slowly, the rest of the people kind of follow along. Like you said, I think we kind of all could say, if you don't know how to make the most out of the digital experience, you'll never have your offline experience, your live event experience isn't going to be fully realized either. I'm sure, Liz can talk to that too, planning events. I mean, just to see where Texie Talks has gone as an attendee for many years. I don't think I was at the first one, but I was at an earlier one. And even just the sophistication that your event has shown over the years, I think is a testament to that. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Liz, what do you think? Do you think the evolution of planners have had to happen with the evolution of tech?
Absolutely. I think, in the beginning, it was like curious people who probably were more tech-minded in general, people who love technology. I was definitely one of those people. And like you said, just ever since I was a kid, I was always interested in building my own websites. I recently found a website that I built in like middle school, and it's so embarrassing. I'm not sharing the link. But yeah, I think so. Then it's become something that was like an interesting thing that some people opted to do to now something that everyone is mandated to do. And it's not just you have to be a great event planner and know all your logistics and timelines and budgets. Now you have to know technology integration. You have to be thinking about engagement. And definitely sponsors have gotten much smarter over the last 10 years too. So they want more than just a logo everywhere. So you got to be great at sponsorship engagement and activation. Now, because social is such a huge part of our business, we have to be content marketers. You know, we have to be data analytics people. It's a lot. And, you know, I guess everyone experiences that. Technology gives us a lot more access to stuff, but with more access comes more work and more responsibility and also more opportunities. But definitely, I think it has completely changed the role of an event planner. And I think that anyone who is really hesitant to, you know, put themselves out there and learn this stuff is now behind the curve. And that's really where we've always wanted Techie Talk to play that role, so that it actually will help people catch up. Otherwise, how do you learn this stuff? I mean, it's evolving faster than the tech companies can keep up with.
That's true. That's very true. And I think you bring up the good point. With great tech comes great responsibility. And I think that's going to be
a quote or something.
Mike, you know, obviously your role is purely focused on tech, right? Within Convene, you are head of tech. You are in charge of all of it. Do you feel like events are getting to the point where, obviously, like I think people generally have like a tech person on their team, but do you think it's less and less required for it to be a dedicated tech person? More so like tech is responsible for everybody? What are your kind of thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a good question. And just to harp back to something Liz said, the education component for meeting planners in tech is huge. I think one of the biggest trepidations for an event planner is, or fear, is technology. There's this fear of things going wrong and maybe the wool being pulled over your eyes because it's too techy and you can't understand what's going on, right? So from an education component and knowing some core concepts as an event planner, it's going to help you build a better program. You know, realizing how technology can support your agenda and working with your tech team to realize that goal goes a long way. And like Liz said, if you're not making an effort to stay on top of those things and you're just kind of taking it for granted, you're going to fall behind the curve, and the tech's going to outpace you. And then to your question, Will, in terms of you know, is tech kind of a requirement, and you know, who's handling what nowadays? I think to be successful in any venture nowadays, you have to be a jack of all trades, not necessarily a master of one. I think having the flexibility to be well versed in tech while being versed in meeting planning fundamentals too. I think it's just best practice to have to keep you working and keep your options open, and maybe finding avenues of exploration that you wouldn't have otherwise by pigeonholing yourself into one aspect of event planning.
I love that. And yeah, I definitely would agree. I think you need to be a little dangerous for sure. All right, so we're starting to get a lot of questions in from the audience, so I'm going to try to prioritize this and trying to put us on a little bit of a journey. So I'm going back to the turning on the time machine for a second. Want to know, as far as, in your opinion, if you had to rank these, feel free to like say number 1, number 2, number 3. What do you think has been the most important evolutions in terms of the different areas of event technology? And if you had to order these, they would be pre-event planning, so like pre-event, on-site engagement during the event, or post-event data. Which is most important, and how would you kind of rank those and how they've evolved, and what's been the most important evolution? So we talked a little bit about the hashtags with Twitter. That obviously would go under on-site engagement, right? But now it's more about live polling, like you were saying, Mike. So if you had to pick between pre-event planning, on-site engagement, and post-event day, what's been the most important when it comes to evolution? And I'm going to let whoever they want to go first. Let's see.
I think you're going to have a different answer depending on who you ask here, which is cool. Everyone's representing all three of those phases. So for me, I would definitely prioritize the pre-planning. Failure to plan is planning to fail, especially when it comes to technology. And the more complicated an event and the more technology you want to integrate, it's just more and more preparation and more practice that has to happen. We've all been to conferences where there could be this really great tech, but if it doesn't work, it hinders the program. It becomes a distraction as opposed to a vehicle for a better program and better event.
I like it. And I think, too, it's becoming more and less common for people to say, I'm going to grab my paper binder with all my information. And instead, they're pulling an iPad or Surface Pro like I use. And that's sort of saying, here, let me bring this up real quick. And virtual meetings, right? All that sort of stuff is definitely, I think, evolving when it comes to pre-planning. What about you, David? I have a theory. It might be pre-event planning, but like, do you have any other ones that you think are number one?
Yeah, so obviously pre-event to me makes a lot of sense, just seeing what, something like Bizzabo can do, and that I think organizers have come a long way there. I think also technology slots in really nicely to the pre-event side, because it, by nature, we're just now on digital first, right? We're online first, and going to an event is a special occasion. So in some ways, I don't think tech has fully figured out what to do. Like, there's a lot of tech out there that will, like you said, will measure every single eye movement. But then as an organizer, what do you do with that information if you don't have it like a data analytics team? If you're more like a small scale or mid-size, it's still a bit of a question. And I think eventually we're going to get to a place where there's, an algorithm that's kind of looking for patterns and just surfaces, hey, this is what you should do based on all the data you collected. But we're not there yet. Speaking on the post-events, the post-event side, I think there's a lot that's come about here in terms of just being able to measure attendee satisfaction. That remains, I think, one of the biggest drivers for organizers, even if they're selling. It doesn't really matter. An organizer, I think, is motivated to make an amazing experience, make something meaningful. So they always will go to attendee satisfaction as a key indicator of that. And now just the fact that you can easily send a survey across every channel, pull that data in, and slice that, again, really simply by, for example, attendee type, ticket type, session type. It's pretty easy. And then I would imagine that a majority of listeners who are planning events are using this data to plan the next event. Like, do you invite that speaker back? Before, when you had a paper survey, remember those little golf pencils and the survey, you fill it out on your knee, and then you hand that in. By the way, how many of you handed them in? They're like, it's not legible. What are you going to do with that? Okay, 5 hanging chads, and Al Gore won the election. Anyway, so with technology, like, that's just so much easier. I think that's already made an impact. And we'll see what happens, like when we do this show again in a few years. I think we'll finally have figured out that during event section. So yeah, I would rank it pre-event, post-event, and then third would be like at event.
Love it. I love it. I'm imagining what EventIcons 2026 is going to look like now. So thank you.
That's right. Yeah.
Liz, what about you? I mean, what are your thoughts? What has been the most impactful? Pre-event planning, the evolution of that, or on-site engagement, or post-planning data?
I want to break the rules and just say that I think
we can have consensus. That's okay.
I think the thing is, you have to, especially in today's world, you have to focus on the attendee, because getting their attention is darn near impossible. Keeping their attention, especially when they're on site, also pretty much impossible. And then knowing who's who and what they're doing and what they love and being able to sell that to sponsors, it's like impossible. And I always use the example of, like, I'm here based in New York City, and literally tonight I could choose to do 10,000 different things on a Wednesday night. I didn't have to pre-register for any of them, and I probably don't have to pay for 75% of them. And it's like, who's going to get my attention tonight? And that's really hard to find. And I think that, so the most important, in my opinion, I think these days, is the pre-event piece of it, getting the attention. Once you do that, yes, during the event and the post-event is incredibly important, but it's a little bit easier if you can just get someone's attention. Yeah. And that's on the sponsor side, it's on the attendee side. Like, all of that, I think, is the most critical piece right now. And I don't think that that's always been the case. I think kind of evolution-wise, we were looking at during the event was the most important. And that's why a lot of this stuff was like fun hashtag tracking and photo booths and stuff like that. It was just something fun. It was a fun way to show that technology could be integrated. But now we realize, first of all, that our attendees are much smarter, but also they're really, really busy and they're easily distracted. So obviously I believe that all three of those components fit together to make a great event, and focusing on one over the other two is never going to get you very far. But I guess if I had to specify one specific thing, I would say that first pre-event is so important.
I was going to agree with you really like a ton as well, because I think if we maybe asked that question 4 years ago when, social was, just still on the uprise and what, everything like that. We were talking about like hashtag Twitters and everything like that. I think we might've said on-site engagement, but now I think, if you look at all the trends articles for this year, everyone's saying it's the opposite about on-site engagement. It's pulling away from technology, getting people off their phones, and how can we disconnect? And I think that also is making it so there has to be a really big evolution, I think, in on-site engagement. I think there's still great tools like Slido, like we were talking about before. I love Slido. I love technology like Catchbox, that get engagement. But I think it's because they don't require you to be sitting there fully engaged on your phone too much, and they allow you to still be engaged with the event. So yeah, we'll see where it goes.
Catchbox is a great example of how tech can take you out of other tech, which is a little meta, but right, it's like a speaker in this Nerf ball kind of square box. Now you're focused on not your phone. It's fun. It's innovative.
I love it. All right. Oh my gosh. Getting more questions in. All right. So we're talking a little bit about engagement tools. I'm going to hop around a little bit. While we are talking about that, engagement might not be the thing that's had the most importance. There still has been some really cool advances in on-site engagement. And I think our audience is always asking, it's like already starting to pop in, and I think it's going to be the number one question in the episode is, tell us your favorite tools, because you guys are full of a lot of really cool tools. What are the best engagement tools that you have seen come online over the last 8 years? Let's go with whether it exists still or not. So maybe even something that you thought was amazing that doesn't exist anymore. Or obviously if it still exists, obviously as well. And if you guys have like the spelling of it, we can link to it below in the resource section. I'll go with Liz. Liz, you're the queen. You got tons of tools. Go ahead. What would be like your favorite engagement tools you've seen? If you'll interrupt and say, hey, I love that one too, or feel free to jump in on similar tools, all that stuff. So free for all, go.
So I think at least one that I'm more obsessed with recently is Glisser, Glisser. Integrates really seamlessly, and it's this idea of second screen technology. So your attendees, I am not a believer in everyone put your phones in a lockbox when you enter the door and don't touch it. People, I know I'm super neurotic about that. I start twitching. I have to go, I don't know. It's too stressful. So I'm not a fan of that. But my thing is, if we can make our event so awesome that they forget doing other things on those devices, that's a success. And using second screen technology is one of those things that was not really around, at least as far as I know, years ago. But today it makes it easy to enhance the person's experience by leveraging that second screen. So you're actually getting them more engaged with what's happening instead of them getting lost in Facebook or their email account or whatever it is. So I think that's one thing. Another huge thing, which I guess is not a tech thing at all, is fun. And I think whether that's an app that includes gamification, people want to be distracted. They want to be a part of an immersive experience. Like RFID is a great way to make tech seamless so that people don't realize that they're using tech and that tech is enhancing their event. And that, I think, is kind of the tipping point where we're going. It's less about something that your face is going to be lost in for the entire time, but it's using the technology that people are so used to using, but catching their attention in a different way with it and using that to get them more engaged on site.
Ooh, I like it. Go ahead, David.
Yeah. So in terms of current tech, I always think crowd mics is a cool tool. So basically, if you don't know it, it plugs into your Wi-Fi and your AV system, and it can turn any phone into a microphone. So those QA scrambles to the 3 mics that are in every aisle don't happen again. So I think the concept there is cool. It almost probably feels like magic when you're using it. So I think tech like that is amazing. I actually remember attending Texi Talk, I think 2 years ago, and I forget the name of the speaker, but there was this technologist there talking about augmented reality and how that can be used at an event. Liz, I'm sure you know this much better than I do, but you could have your phone up on a particular magic square and that would overlay some, it could be anything, right? And I'm sure a lot of listeners know Apple is really going into AR. So augmented reality, they think that's the superior way of displaying information visually as opposed to VR, which is like too immersive, pulls you out of your world. And I think talking about more of the future side of things, that's speaking to, again, what Liz was saying about tech that makes things fun. The technology is almost there. Like Apple is definitely working on this stuff. Their new chip in their new iPhones is fully supportive of AR. I think we'll start seeing that more in events. And now it's a matter of, okay, so what are the actual event applications outside of, Pokemon Go? Like, how do you use that at a real event? But we're almost there. So that's going to be, I think, a breakthrough for the industry soon.
Awesome. We have a question in from the audience. Sid's asking, what's the name of the app again? Glypher. The app is Glisser, Glisser. It'll also be in the resource section down below in the blog, posted on Tuesday. So check out Glisser. It's definitely awesome. And I definitely agree on this, the AR side of things. Really, really cool. I mean, mind-blowing to think about where it's going to go in the future. Intel, I believe, came out with these kind of Google glasses that don't look like Google glasses 2 weeks ago or so. I'll link to them in the description. I think they're Intel Vaultec or something like that. Totally messing up the name, but really, really cool. I think where we're going to go with AR. And gosh, who knows your on-site engagement is going to look like when we start to get Black Mirror-like when there's screens popping up on our faces while we're going along. So, Mike, what about you? What sort of on-site engagement tools have you seen that you've been loving?
Yeah, I referenced it earlier, in not to beat to death, but Slido's been great. Not only are they just a great company, great guys, but they make a great product. And there's a product that they have that a lot of people aren't aware of called Slide Drives. And as event tech, it's a really great PC-based software. It might be Mac-based now as well, but it's actually like a virtual video switcher. So you can load all of your day's content, maybe video files, URLs, Excel spreadsheets, PowerPoints, keynotes, everything. You can put it in this one player, and you can basically just double click, and it switches between all your different content. Where in the past, maybe you needed multiple laptops, plus a video switcher, plus a tech sitting there pressing buttons. You could theoretically do this and make this like a one-person operation. And you can build playlists. You can push it to the cloud for redundancy. And then it integrates with their polling and live Q&A features as well. It's really powerful, really cool tools. And just AR is honestly, I think beyond events, it's going to be part of our lives. Construction is using it to be able to see behind walls, and so they can put on AR and they can see where your structural support, where your electrical conduits are. Even down to our retail shopping experiences, things will pop out at you for sales that are curated to your likes and your styles. So it totally makes sense that that's going to be the next level engagement for events. Virtual reality is cool. It's immersive, but it's almost like it's a fun novelty. It's supplementary, where AR can actually enhance the experience and tie back into it. And it'll allow, I think, events to curate the experience for a specific participant and an attendee, which I'm noticing more and more is what people want. I think a lot of the feedback and the reason we collect all these feedback through these tools is that so that we can curate the content to the people that are actually showing up. If we had the ability to do that live and on the fly, that's awesome. That's going to increase your retention rate. Allows you to market the event as a more successful event for future repeats and stuff like that as well.
I agree 100%. I think the note you made about VR not being quite there too. I think for events, it's difficult because it's also solitary. You don't see anything else going on. If someone's connecting digitally, right? Like, playing a video game with someone across the world, totally cool. But like, if we're not all going to show up at a venue and put VR headsets on, that just really destroys the on-site engagement. I think that's what everyone's kind of come to, right? We're getting towards that Ready Player One-esque world. Right. Got another question from the audience. They were asking, and David, let me know what you think on this one. Is there a way, if you know, to pay as you go plan for crowd mics for, as he says, for us in the middle of nowhere that will not use it every single week? I know Tim Holiday, great friend of EventIcons, Endless. Obviously a really awesome guy. From my understanding is chat with them, let them know what you're trying to do. They want to try to help the industry out. So I don't know if you have seen anything else on that end.
No, My understanding is they'll even go to your event and help you set up the tech. So I think they're pretty flexible. I'm not really sure what their pricing or payment plans are like, but like Will said, just I would reach out. They're pretty responsive and very friendly. So I would ask directly.
Awesome. And let them know EventIcons sent you. So,
yeah.
All right. On to some more questions. So we have a ton of questions and not a lot of time. So I want to do the same question, like your favorite tech, but we talked about pre-planning and how we thought it was like the number one thing. So I know David's answer, so we're not even gonna give him a chance to answer, but what is your guys' favorite pre-planning technology that you have seen in the last couple of years? And David, I'm just kidding. Go ahead, go kick it off. Obviously we know one of your recommendations, but if you have any others, we'd love to hear them.
You're a psychic as well as an event tech expert. Well, yeah, Bizzabo is a great tool, I have to say. Not just because I work there, but really it's a great all-in-one EMS tool. And if you want to talk, email me, david@bizzabo.com. But aside from Bizzabo, for me, actually, it's tech that's not purely focused on events, but that can be used for events. So, for example, more and more organizers that I'm talking to are using things like a data warehousing and visualization tool. So they're like collecting all of that data from many different places, and they're putting it in like a responsive dashboard that allows them to track all these different metrics from all these different places in one place. I think that's increasingly going to be the future because your attendees are voting with their clicks and feet. For me, that's something that the more tech savvy organizers should think about or should at least familiarize themselves with for the future.
Awesome. Liz, what about you? What would be your like go-to pre-planning tech that you've seen?
Well, I'm not sucking up, but I always say Bizzabo, so that threw me off. But I've recently been looking into a few different interesting companies because, as I mentioned, I think marketing is so important. And, one of the hardest things I think is that ideally you amass this online audience, and then it comes time to market your event or to reach those people and figure out what kind of content they want to hear. And it's like impossible to figure out who's really in your network and who are they. So I heard about a company called Access Fuel and another one called Rodario. And they basically, you import all of your data, all the past registration lists, everyone who's in your CRM, everyone who's following you on Twitter or connected with you on LinkedIn. It aggregates all that data, and then it also enhances that data. So it starts pulling in like their social media profiles and giving you, and Access Fuel has this really interesting feature where they actually give you the marketing, what are they called? Like personas? This is totally not I'm learning this. So they'll actually tell you like 80% of your audience is a millennial from 22 to 35. They like these different kinds of things. And when you're thinking of, different options, I think it's a way to learn about your audience and to really engage them. You can then, once you get that information, you can feed it back into your newsletter system or, your CRM system, and then you can do targeted blasts that actually speak to your audience instead of mass blasts. Things like, specific segmented campaigns is actually something I really started thinking about after hearing about it from Bizzabo. But Access Fuel is the one, and Rodario is the other one. Radario.
Excellent. All right, Mike, tech expert, go.
For us, and this might be convene specific, but social tables has been a really great tool in the pre-planning and coordination phase. We use it for all of our room diagrams and sets. We don't even use it to the full feature set that it provides, but it allows us to provide our client base with, if they're planning remotely, maybe they're not in New York, so they don't have an opportunity to visit the space as often as they would like and do some walkthroughs, but gives them an idea to visualize what it's going to look like before they walk in the day of, and be able to see what things like the staging, where the tables and the tech table is going to be, if there's any additional lighting. And it takes the guesswork out of it, right? And then it reduces the amount of day of scrambling to make things right. So for us, I think that's probably our best pre-planning tool. Salesforce is huge for us as our CRM, but that use case is really specific and designed to kind of what we're doing here at Convene, and maybe not necessarily for the event planner.
Awesome. I'm definitely a huge fan of social tables as well. The one tool I was going to recommend, I have to bend over my desk real quick. And we were talking about VR for a second. I wanted to figure out a way that I could tie in this other app that I saw. And most recently I saw Nick Borelli's Instagram stories, and he was sharing this from, I think at CaterSource is going on right now, I believe. CaterSource. Yeah, CaterSource. And All Seated actually has like a VR portion of their software that allows you to walk through a venue in virtual reality, which I'm super nerding out on virtual reality. As much as I don't think it's like great for events, I do think it is great for when you want to play video games and hang out in your house and see cool things. But I'm really excited about that idea too, from the pre-planning aspect. You know, for a company like us where we're traveling all over the world doing these events, and to be honest, not every single venue we've been in before, it'd be great just to like walk in and be like, okay, like I can see where the rigging points are in the ceiling. I can see where there's a chandelier. Things that aren't quite shown in pictures very well, but also not shown very well in diagrams. I think that's really, really cool for the future as well. So really, really excited for that. All right. Wow. We have so many questions. We have 9 minutes left. Oh my gosh. Which questions are we going to choose? Let's go with this one. This is kind of me, I think, one of our second to last questions. What would you have to say to people who are worried about budgeting tech? You know, back when we had Twitter hashtags, most of those tools were like free because everyone was testing things out. But now we're in the day and age where if you want a sophisticated tool, it costs serious change. Like I remember when we adopted HubSpot for our marketing software, $800 a month. Like that sounded outrageous, but you know, obviously it's become very worth it for us. What would you have to say to people who are worried about cost of their tech? And so, for example, let's go with David. Since you're on the software side of things, obviously you get what you pay for, right? But
True.
What else would you have to say to people who are worried about the cost of adoption?
Yeah. So the first thing I always suggest is to start by actually looking at two things. One of them, your goals. So why are you planning this event, and what are you trying to, to get from it? And if you can, choose only one or two goals, because if there are too many, then you're going to have a big bill probably. The other thing I suggest is you look at your day. For 2 weeks, look at how you are spending your time and how your team's spending your time. Are you happy with that? Are you happy with the amount of focus you can put on the things that really matter to you? And do you think your work is adding value, or are you doing a lot of stuff that maybe could be automated or that could be outsourced or something? Once you do those two things, then you're going to probably understand, okay, this is like the type of tool that I need. And from there, your research should really be geared towards, okay, is this tool going to provide the value I need? And how will I know it? That this is the case. And that's when you start, if you can, having a frank conversation with the vendors. Like, show me examples of customers like me that use this tool in this way. What was the outcome? What's the customer service, customer support like? All of that stuff. And from there, it should be a value assessment and not a budget assessment. Because again, if the tool is, let's say that you have paid registrations, and that's your primary KPI. So you invest in a tool that can double or triple that. Maybe originally that's not in your budget, but suddenly you have scaled your event by 3. It's really about value. So that's the approach I would take. Goals, how you're spending your time, and a value assessment, and you'll get close to the right thing. And remember that a lot of vendors want to work with you. People that are, the real vendors that care about events, they're flexible, they're passionate, they want you to be successful. Often you can do a trial or a demo or something to make, have as much confidence as possible when making that investment.
Awesome. Wow. So good. So good. Liz, what about you? I mean, you've seen the evolution of these companies and the costs, and tools that used to be $9.99 a month now are $999 a month. What are your thought process around budgeting software and technology?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always important to remember that everyone has to make a living, right? So these tech companies are spending a ton of money developing and coming up with solutions that really do solve our problems. So yes, there is going to be a budget attached to that. And I definitely agree with everything David said. That's a lot of the stuff that I talk about. I know, though, that in the budget conversation, 9 times out of 10, the person who's suggesting the technology is not necessarily the person who gets to decide whether we pay for that technology. So whether you're selling it to a client or you're selling it to your boss, you're doing this event, you have a great idea, and then they're like, yeah, well, we don't want to spend the money. So I think one key, in addition, of course, to looking at your goals, is to identify the pain points that it's going to solve. So go for the worst part of your event and see what you can do to implement something that's going to make that better. So let's say you know that every year you spend 9,000 hours marketing your event, and when it comes time for the next event, 0% of the people from last year register again. Like, you're just not capturing attention. Maybe that's something to focus on. Or as David said, maybe you're spending so much of your time exporting data from one system, cleaning it up, resorting it, importing it into another system, only to find out that you accidentally sorted only by one column and not the whole sheet, and you got to start all over again. So what are the things that keep you up at night, that stress you out, that make you feel like you're going to pull your hair out and quit your job, and find a solution for that? And then, yeah, I mean, there's lots of cool things that you could do, but it doesn't necessarily make sense for every event and every budget. So as long as you're doing something that meets your goals and solves your pain or your attendees' pain, I think it's worth trying. And then, yes, you negotiate and you figure out how you can work up to a great relationship with a vendor, look for great support. But, you know, I think like anything, if you're trying to sell it to your boss or you're trying to sell a service, it's all about touching those pain points.
Awesome. Well, Mike, what about on your end? I mean, you're used to a little bit more physical technologies and especially on-site at the event at Convene, right? Convincing people that these technologies are worth it, that you're going to have that maybe other traditional venue didn't have. You know, what do you have when people are considering costs and budgets around technology?
Yeah, that's a good question. And you know, so much of your budget gets spent on just finding a space, right, that you think is going to be right for the event. And if you don't have a real clear insight as to what the agenda is going to look like or the flow of the day, it's hard to kind of budget what your technology needs are going to be. So a lot of the time it's last minute and it's kind of at the tail end of your spend. So you may not have enough in the funnel to really justify everything that you need. I guess a piece of advice is don't skimp on the basics to reach for something that might be, I don't know, really niche-y or cool, or what you think might be cool. Making sure that the basics are there. So if it's a really presentation-heavy program, that you have everything you need to display a presentation. If you have enough microphones for your panelists so that everybody in the room can hear. If you have Q&A mics. I think keep it simple and keep it to the basics, because that's what's going to that's your number one tool for engagement, right? If I can't hear you speaking, I'm not paying attention anymore. I'm going to look at my phone. If I can't see the presentation, I'm going to look at my phone. So regardless of whatever cool AR, VR things you have out in the hallway, the content in the room is the most important part. So don't skimp on the delivery system for your most basic fundamental meeting goal, which is presenting the content.
Good. I love it. I love it. We're getting so many props in the chat and the questions. Everyone's just applauding you guys and saying, so wise, so amazing. Big shout out to everyone who is watching right now. But this does have to come to an end, unfortunately. Otherwise, we would be here forever. So with that being said, I want to wrap up with our last two final questions that we always ask, which first one is, what is your one tip that you have for event planners in 2018? It can be event tech related or not, about anything. And I feel bad for Liz and David because they've had to come out with so many tips. So we're going to kick it off with Mike, since you got your one tip and you got your fresh start.
I think I may have spoiled it, but I think keep it simple. Get the basics right, and then everything else afterwards is icing on the cake. If you can get the presentation elements right and you can get your attendees feeling great, don't worry about the other stuff. I mean, in my professional career, I've learned that it's 90% the way you make people feel and 10% the technology. And for the most part, people don't care about the technologies, right? They just want to know that it's happening and it's working. We don't want to know how it works. Like, I'm not really sure how my iPhone works, but I know it works, and I like the fact that it works, right? And same thing with meetings. So sorry to repeat the same answer twice, but there is nothing wrong with simple. And you know, maybe here's another one just to follow up is know your audience, right? And know when to utilize your tech. Maybe an older financial institution doesn't really care about all this cool fancy tech. They just want to look at presentations versus maybe you're planning an event for, I don't know, Google or Apple, you know, and you're going to need that kind of technology to showcase to those attendees. So really knowing your attendee base is going to help you make some really informed decisions.
Awesome. Fantastic. I love it. I love the 90% people don't, 90% are going to be about what they feel versus how it works. And that whole iPhone analogy. Love it. Ace. Yeah. So good. All right. Liz, what about you? What would be your one tip that you have for event planners?
Gosh, two come to mind. So I'm going to cheat again. I'm not a rule follower. One would be love, respect, invest in your attendees, get to know them and really love them. Like, don't just love their money, but love the people and do everything you can to make them happy. And my second is do things that are really uncomfortable. And I think this definitely applies to technology, but it applies to content marketing. It applies to security and safety issues. Our world is changing really fast. And if you're waiting for pioneers to pave the way and then write a guide and give it to you, you're too late. So try something new. Tell everyone the stuff that you're doing and share your experience and leverage the collective experience of our industry. But don't wait for the guide to be written, because you are definitely going to lose your competitive edge in this industry that is moving really, really fast.
Oh, wow. I think that's like my favorite quote thought process right now for this quarter. So if you're waiting for a guide, you're too late. I love it. Gosh, these quotes are so good. I am so sorry. We're going to have like a blog post just filled with tweets from this episode. David, what about you? What's your one tip that you have for event planners?
Sure. It's similar to Liz. I make 2018 the year of self-education. I bet a lot of you feel like the world's changing really fast, because it is. And it's so much so that in a few years, I have a feeling that events are going to be much different, and the type of skill set that will be required from, to plan a really successful event is going to be different. Think of it as a timeline. It's already changed quite a bit, and some people have managed to keep up and some people haven't. So it's going to continue to change. The digital is going to continue to bleed into the offline in good ways and not. And it's I would start with, again, what are your biggest goals, and teach yourself something new to achieve them this year.
Excellent.
That's a great point. It's easy to get caught up in your day to day and forget about all the things that are changing around you. And then the year is gone. I think being actively involved in training, reading, and skill development, it's going to keep you working longer for sure.
Yeah,
definitely.
All right. Last question I have for you guys. We already dropped a ton of resources. I'm literally looking at the list of resources. Everyone's going to have to go check out the blog after, because it is like 3 pages long of apps you guys have already mentioned. But what cool resources do you guys have, whether it's event tech related or not? Favorite book you're reading, cool tech that you're hanging out with, anything at all. Share those resources. And I know David always has something up his sleeve that he's hanging on to and liking today. So, David, why don't you kick us off with one of your favorite resources?
Sure. Here we go. I have 2. All right. Number 1, Udemy. Talk about self-education. Online courses, very reasonably priced. There are similar, Coursera. You can go and just Google online course stuff, and you'll find a ton of information about really cutting edge and fascinating stuff. That's the first one. Second one, about attendee pre-event, website optimization. A lot of those tools are hard to use and they're expensive. Hotjar is great. It's really reasonably priced. It shows you stuff like attendee heat maps and click where they're moving their mouse and stuff like that. Really easy to install, and it will end up meaning you're creating a better attendee experience if you learn from that data.
Ooh, I like it. Another cool, if you're doing any sort of content marketing online too, I just found this app called Proof. I think it's useproof.com. It installs really easily, and then it just pops up with little pop-ups when people submit blog subscriptions, things like that. Where I just found out about it yesterday and testing it on the site. Pretty cool. I'm not sure if we're going to end up keeping it just because we have so many pop-ups and things going on the site, but Hotjar is something that we use too to do all of our surveys and everything like that too. So I love that recommendation. Liz, what about you? What cool resources do you have for us today?
I am super interested in cryptocurrency and blockchain technology and what that's going to mean for the events industry. super fast financial transaction times, but also more secure and quick exchange of information. I'm an investor in Litecoin and Ripple, which is a bad decision. But I'm really just interested in how, like, for example, I know Bizzabo integrates with Stripe, and Stripe for quite a while was accepting Bitcoin. And what could that look like if you could pay for your event using Bitcoin? But more importantly, that underlying blockchain technology, I think it's something people should just read up on, because I do think we're going to see impacts on the world and maybe even the world's financial system.
We're doing a webinar about that tomorrow, actually.
Ooh.
Oh, I have to be there.
I'll send you an invite.
Thank
Awesome. And David, send us the link afterwards too. And will people be able to watch it afterwards if they sign up?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Yeah, send us over the link. We'll put in the resources for that as well. Awesome. I know everyone's really interested in blockchain right now. Awesome. Fantastic. All right. Mike, last but not least, what resources you got for us?
Shameless Convene plug, but convene.com/catalyst. It's our weekly newsletter. It's filled with a lot of great guides for event planners, tech and non-tech related. A lot of Convene employees from all sides of the operation contribute to it, from culinary to space to production. A lot of good resources, and there's a really great ebook about event trend disruptors for 2018. Free download, and everyone should check that out. And actually, livestream.com has some really awesome resources about utilizing streaming services, not just necessarily live stream, but any streaming service, and increasing remote attendee engagement and your ROI on that. That's becoming more of a prevalent technology because it's, like we discussed earlier, it's easy to access, it's cheaper to access than it's ever been. And it's a great way to spread the word and promote your event.
Love it. I love live stream, and I don't know if I've shared this on a past episode. I feel like it might have, but live stream actually makes hardware too, which not a lot of people know about. And they actually make like control switchers, so you can switch between cameras. And everyone knows about that one Mevo. It's called Mevo, I think.
The Mevo cam,
camera and turns in like 4 extra shots. Well, you can pipe that into the switcher. And to be honest, like, so we obviously do full scale, like live stream production up to 4K in quality, all that sort of stuff. But it's relatively expensive to do. But if you're looking at doing repetitive live streams and you want to have someone on your team who knows tech, do it. Oh my gosh. I dream of having one of those setups and like flying you guys in and doing EventIcons that way. It'd be so cool to do. But we aren't quite there with EventIcons yet. One day
they have some really great cost-effective solutions though too. And so we just partnered with them recently and brought some of that hardware in-house. And it's just opened up a whole new world for us, for our clients, and just up the production value. And
that's awesome.
It's becoming more and more of a cost-effective solution and easy to implement.
So do you guys have that sorry, that's totally random thinking out for a second. Do you guys have that hardware on site at some of your venues? People can
we do.
Just go on and you guys run it for them?
Yeah, exactly. So, we've tiered it so that we can do a really basic entry-level, cheap, let's throw up some content and audio, to a full-on multi-camera with a switch engineer and do a full-on production.
That's awesome. Awesome. I think people need stuff like that too. Because, yeah, awesome. Absolutely fantastic. Wow. So many resources. So many good quotes, so many knowledge bombs. I went totally 8 minutes over time because you guys are just so fantastic. So sorry for taking over the hour of your guys' time, but I think the audience is going crazy. Again, everyone was saying knowledge bombs all day long. So very, very cool. Well, big thank you to everyone for tuning in. For everyone who is tuned in right now, we do this every week, 5 p.m. Eastern. The outro will tell you what to do, but you want to sign up at www.event-icons.com. If you're on the Facebook Live right now, get on event-icons.com, sign up, because that's where you get the exclusive content, the invite to the Facebook group. If you're watching this and you're in the Facebook group, shout out to you guys. Make sure to ask and join the conversation. We do questions of the week. We share some exclusive content. And then these guys will be in the group too. So you can ask them questions outside of the show. So cool. So definitely go check that out, event-icons.com. But we do have to end the show. And a big thank you to our guests, Mike, Liz, David. Amazing. Thank you guys so much. What a great topic. And again, I'm excited to see EventIcons 2026 when we're talking about the last 16 years of event tech. But we do have to get out of here. I hope everyone has a fantastic day, and we will see you guys next week.
Thank you for joining us for another amazing episode of #EventIcons. To catch the transcription and all of the resources mentioned, head to www.helloendless.com/blog. This week's episode will be posted and available by next Tuesday. Also, let us know what you thought about this week's episode. Share your biggest takeaway and join the social conversation. Sponsored by Little Bird Told Media. Just tag your post with #EventIcons. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you again for joining us. We'll see you next Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern, right here on #EventIcons.